Welcome to another episode of Tank Talks, your personal think tank for all things startups and venture capital. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner at Ripple Ventures. On today's show, we have Manuel Schoenfeld, founder and CEO of PowerX, to discuss the true cost of decarbonizing our homes and the ways in which PowerX is helping reduce this burden. In the United States, the average household spends around $4,200 a year on energy costs, with homes in colder climates spending thousands more. Yet, we are still unable to build more efficient homes for consumers, and it is estimated that the total cost savings for the US could add up to as much as $321 billion if this challenge was solved. We asked Manuel why it has been so difficult to encourage people to try and build more energy-efficient homes, and how PowerX is helping consumers access information to make their homes more energy efficient. We cover some of the ways in which PowerX is expanding its product offering to help businesses as well as irrigation systems use less energy and resources like water. Finally, we asked Manuel to explain how he was able to attract investors from Tesla and SpaceX, along with YCombinator, to a very crowded market, and how he plans to grow over the years. But before we get started today, I wanted to share my experience working with the amazing team at Silicon Valley Bank Canada that I believe other founders and fund managers should hear. I've been fortunate enough to get to know several members of the Silicon Valley Bank Canada team over the past few years since they opened up their Canadian HQ in 2019, and have been so impressed with their commitment to the success of our ecosystem. With over 35 years of experience working with founders, it probably comes as no surprise to hear that all they do is work to support the needs of entrepreneurs and their investors. Silicon Valley Bank understands the questions that keep founders up at night. The team in Canada, that includes Shez Samji, Managing Director and Head of Biz Dev, has been a breath of fresh air for the Canadian startup ecosystem. With a team of experts dedicated to supporting Canadian startups, SVB has been providing not only financial services to innovative companies like ours at Ripple Ventures, but also at the fund level for ourselves and our LPs. Shez and his team are also helping build connections to potential partners through their introductions and events, research and insights, and helping leverage their full SVB platform to help our founders succeed globally. With such a rich history as Silicon Valley's banking partner for some of the top tech companies in the world, it's no surprise that we have decided to partner with SVB Canada at Tank Talks so other founders and entrepreneurs can benefit from the incredible products and services SVB offers. Listeners of Tank Talks can get set up with an intro meeting with one of SVB Canada's team members by visiting svb.com/Canada and mentioning Tank Talks to get set up today. Now let's get into this week's chat with founder and CEO of PowerX, Manuel Schoenfeld. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for our next Ripple Ventures Tank Talk with Manuel Schoenfeld to discuss the true cost to decarbonizing our homes. Thanks for joining us in the tank today, Manuel.
Thanks for having me.
So as I mentioned today, I wanted to talk about the true cost of decarbonizing our homes and the ways in which PowerX is helping reduce this burden. Let's kick things off and discuss the reason why it has been so difficult for homes to reduce their carbon footprint. As most people know, most American households run on fossil fuels like natural gas and for heat and hot water and kitchen stoves, and then regular gasoline or diesel for their cars, or either coal and natural gas power plants for electricity. However, there was a recent report that I read that looked at what it would take for every household to fully decarbonize, and it said that it's actually feasible, and it's not technology that's the problem, but it's some other things that are stopping Americans from saving money. So in your opinion, what is the problem, and why hasn't it happened yet?
I actually think there are two problems, really. So the first one is inertia. In other words, change is not easy, right? Even if there are benefits to changing, like saving money. And the second problem really is a lack of information. So for example, I'm not really sure whether my washing machine is energy efficient or not, or whether my water heater uses too much gas. So that's also where I think our company, PowerX, comes in. PowerX actually reveals this information and makes the money-saving calculations for you. So the second problem, the lack of information, is actually covered and solved by PowerX.
So you think when someone sees that energy saving sticker on the front of their washing machine, that's not enough for people to dig deeper below the surface? They just take that at face value?
Exactly. And also, energy stickers are difficult to compare. Would you know what kind of energy sticker your fridge versus your washing machine has? And then you can wash in 15 different cycles. What kind of impact does that have? Also, how does your washing machine compare to your HVAC, for example? So there's so many things we just don't know, or we can only, let's say, guesstimate. And this information problem, plus like the real calculation of what benefit it could give you to change and be more energy efficient, that is lacking. Like if you knew that you can for sure save $1,000 if you exchange, let's say, your HVAC and washing machine, and that could be done in like less than a day, and all you have to do is click a link to make it happen, for sure you would click that link and it would like give you $1,000 extra each year. But it's unfortunately not that easy, or at least it has unfortunately not been that easy, because with PowerX, we try to do exactly that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I try to run my dishwasher at nighttime because I know that's the cheapest cost for power, but I don't really know the actual cost savings at the end of the day because there's so many other, additions that I'm using the energy for throughout the month that I just see a bill that may be up or down 5 or 10% every month. So you're saying more information is going to make people want to think about this more often.
Exactly. And actually, that's a fantastic example. So, for example, you running your dishwasher at night is probably, 1% of U.S. Americans knowing that you have kind of a variable priced rate with your utility company, and then even acting on this information. So I would say 99% either don't know that there's like a variable pricing available, or if they know, they forget or may not consider like washing at night. And this can have a huge impact. Like in New York, for example, and other states, variable rates can be 200, 300, 400% higher at certain hours than they are, for example, at night. And so if you had something like PowerX that knows this information and it can tell you, hey, if you just run your dishwasher an hour later, it will be half the cost. I think that is significant. That's huge. And that's also what we see with the data we have. And then second, if you even had something that actually automatically does this change for you, so there's like no, change in comfort, not waiting for an hour, as we do with PowerX as well. For example, when we run your water heater an hour later to heat up, then you just save money without even having to think about it.
So you're saying access to information and cost savings are definitely a problem. But I also heard another thing that a lot of people are saying, which is rather legislative, that the governments are not incentivizing people enough to do it and giving them enough information on what's happening at the legislative level. Do you agree with this? And if so, what exactly is going on?
Legislation does play a significant role. I do agree with that. I don't think it's the only, part in the puzzle that has to change. So very often, I believe, when you want to bring about real change, it requires A, strong incentive, and B, low cost to do so. For example, if buying a smart water heater costs a fortune, I have to rebuild my entire basement, and in the end, I save only 5%. There's very little incentive for me to do the change and also very high cost. Legislation can actually help here by providing incentives to consumers. For example, when you get a discount buying or paying for a smart water heater. But I also believe that industry can help here and really must help here and jump into that gap. For example, by lowering the cost. And there are a number of ways to do so. The way we try to do it at PowerX is that we designed a system that's really simple to install, only takes minutes to do so, and saves a couple of $100s per year. So the simplicity of the install, that it only takes some minutes, that it doesn't require a plumber, doesn't need any change in wiring or so. That's where you have very low cost. And then saving a couple of $100, that's the very high incentive part. And I, as a summary, really believe that both have to work together. The legislation in increasing incentives and also the business side in increasing incentives and having low cost of change.
So the upfront cost barrier are blocking people from either considering this, and you think that legislation can help reduce that burden with maybe financial incentives or other type of tax credits that we are starting to see come around in, let's say, the automobile space and in the energy transfer space is going to accelerate the adoption of things like PowerX and other solutions out there?
Cost is definitely an issue. I also think it's, as said, the ease of change. So if all I have to do is kind of, order my Tesla online once my car breaks down, that's quite easy. And then if I have enough charging stations around. That makes it quite simple. If I have to drive like 100 kilometers every time my Tesla runs out of juice, that makes it very difficult, even though the cost might be fantastic. So it must go hand in hand to make things simple, and also increase the monetary incentive by lowering cost and making the benefit of changing just worthwhile.
That makes sense. I mean, another cost thing that we can talk about is renovation costs. I mean, building your home in a more energy efficient way after the home has already been built is probably more costly than doing it from the beginning. And so I'm hearing a lot of people say that it should be the builders that should take on the burden of building a more energy efficient home at the beginning, rather than the consumer having to rebuild the house after the builder has already handed over the keys. So why do you think builders have not adapted to building energy efficient homes from scratch?
So on that front, again, I think the reasons are twofold. First, it's really just a monetary incentive. Like if I, as a builder, just make the same profit or even a higher profit, not building net zero buildings, why, except for doing the right thing, would I actually, change it if it doesn't really come with an increase in profit for me? And then the second reason, again, for me, I believe, is inertia. So if you have built 10,000 homes in a certain way where you do spend a lot of emissions when you use it, it's very difficult for you as a builder to change home design 10,001. So I really do believe, yes, builders are part of the bargain, are part of the puzzle, but it needs to be builders and customers and legislation alike. So if legislation gives a benefit for builders to build these houses, if customers demand it, if builders see these strong signals from the market, it's much easier and connected with much more incentives for them to change.
No, it sounds like you're saying it's more of a pull strategy with customers rather than a push strategy from the builders pushing it down to the customers. And in order for the customers to change, they need to have access to more information and be incentivized to pull on the builders.
Exactly. Like it is very uncommon for businesses to, like change their business line or bring massive innovation if it's not really required by the market. And so that pull, as you describe it, can either be done by the customer demanding it, or the customer having a benefit from it, and that's why they require it, or it can also be helped by legislation.
Right. And we are starting to see companies, though, trying to be, net zero by 2030, like, Amazon or some larger, innovative tech leaders are trying to get to that zero carbon footprint, maybe because their customers are asking for it, but because they also want to do it. But when do you expect the US government to require all new homes to be at least passive or net zero?
I really don't think that's an overnight process, but it's rather a step-by-step change. That may take 1, 2, maybe even 3 decades. And when you look at small local spots where this is already happening, like I'm just picking out, for example, Local Law 97 in New York, there we see exactly the sequential approach whereby 2024, this local law requires a certain cap on carbon emissions for buildings. And then by 2029, this cap is like even increased. So you need to go a step further even. So I think that's what we will see, and it will take some decades. And then on your first point, like businesses like Amazon changing, I do believe these businesses, yes, they want to do right, and they want to send a signal to their customers, hey, we are carbon neutral. I also think they read the signs of the times we are in. Like carbon change is not only knocking on our doors, it's knocking our doors down. It will hit the poorest, the hardest, if you will. Not necessarily, the poorest in the United States, but the poorest, like people in Bangladesh, a city which is like built pretty much close to sea level. That's one reason. The second one is, I think they read the signs of the time because they know that governments have to react to that, and governments, like they are already reacting to it. They will react to it more and more so in the future. That may include a carbon tax, it may include an increasing carbon price for the businesses that already trade in CO2 emissions. So I think they read the sign of the times very correctly and already start to position themselves to make sure they're not overrun with this quickly changing emphasis on carbon emissions and climate change.
It's very interesting. It's this invisible threat, this invisible enemy that we don't talk about often because we don't see it every day that we need to prepare for. Very similar and apropos to what we're going through in the last year is a pandemic. We saw how, drastically the pandemic affected everyone's lives and also everyone's day-to-day, supply chains, providing them basic essentials. And I think climate change, even though it's a much longer term, potential pandemic, it could have the same consequences that we saw in the last year with COVID. Don't you think?
I fully agree. I think it's there's one core difference, which is that the pandemic hit like within days, maximum weeks, right? So I still remember first reading on the news that there's something happening in Wuhan, and I thought, okay, that sounds like pretty far away, so nothing to worry about yet. And like a week after, like half the flights were canceled, and it came very, very fast. And something that comes very, very fast in a way has this shock effect, and it gives this, well, I repeat what I said before, like this incentive to change fast because you can see it and you can measure it. So the world reacted quite quickly. In fact, you developed a vaccine in the fastest time ever. On the other hand, climate change is a bit more sneaky, if you will, because it takes, 5, 10, 20, 30 years to slowly develop. And year one might be a bit better than year two, and then year three is again a bit worse, and so on. So the change comes like in very small increments, and that makes it a bit more difficult to feel and to react as fast and as decisive as we should have reacted and as we need to react right now. I'm actually very happy to see like governments at the moment taking very decisive steps and actually like seeing the data and reading the data as I believe correctly, that the next 2, 3, 5 years are actually the most decisive ones. If we had known that COVID was to hit in like 1 year from now, we would have immediately started to develop a vaccine and to vaccinate every country in the world. And like once COVID really hits, it's like not a problem anymore. We didn't know. It came very surprising, so we were a bit late and it took us a year. With climate change, we know. We know it's coming. We know it has incredible impact. I mean, imagine the sea level rising by 6, 8, 10 feet. Like countries will be virtually underwater. Entire cities will have to move, and I mean millions of people that have to move somewhere else. Where do they go? Like it will have such a huge influence. Entire species, as we speak, like species are gone forever. I am happy that now like governments and also businesses are waking up and take really decisive steps and believe in the science they see.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw the Colonial Pipeline go down for a day, and you had lineups at gas stations for people filling up their freaking grocery bags with gasoline to try to get gasoline home. Imagine that thing went out for the whole country for the next year. Everyone would have a solar panel on their roof, and everyone would be driving electrical cars. It's just because it takes a long time for people to react to it or see it happening for them to react to. We don't see the change happening as fast as you and I think it needs to happen, which is definitely something that causes concern, but also creates opportunity for people like you to develop companies like PowerX. So let's talk about how you initially came up with the idea for PowerX and what the company's mission is.
Very, very good question again, and I would love to take your second question first. What's the mission of PowerX? The real mission is to reduce CO2, to reduce carbon emissions, and to make a real measurable dent in the fight against climate change. Yeah, very much mission driven, very much mission focused. The reason why I left my prior job, well-paying prior job, was that I believe we are facing this one of the probably three biggest crises we've ever faced as human beings, as our race. So the mission to do something about it is the core of PowerX. The second part of this mission is really to help consumers, to help them save money, to buy PowerX, make better decisions, have PowerX actually optimize your home and automatically save money with it. And that's, for me, very beautiful because we both help, with the wallet and also help with CO2 emissions. So it touches both the wallet and the heart, if you will. And then on your second question, how did I come up with PowerX? So I was working for a large consulting company before called McKinsey, and I was consulting clients from Papua New Guinea to the Middle East, really, on energy efficiency. And there I saw how much can be saved if water heating was more efficient, was smarter. That was more on industrial level, like oil and gas clients. They use a lot of hot water they pump into the ground. But it's the same principle for homeowners. So seeing amazing efficiency gains one could get when optimizing the water heating process, I researched and started hand soldering in my garage, like the typical Silicon Valley story, and then came up with this unit that would easily attach to most existing water heaters and virtually just run these water heaters more efficiently, mirroring with a tanked water heaters what a tankless water heater does, and saving quite some money with it. And then as a second step, we were thinking that water heater is a very big part. We're actually the nest for water heating. We heat exactly as much water as a user needs right now, and not more and not less. So you will always have the shower that you want and need in your tank. You won't have the heat to kind of shower your 10 friends, because it's also not needed. But that's how many water heaters are set by the plumbing companies. And we said, well, this is amazing. We have water heating covered, but we really want to be able to cover every single stream of energy and water in the home. So we started patenting our first solution, and then we went on and spent time, money on R&D and developed a similar solution for water flow, like a solution that you can just clamp on the pipe and that covers your water. And then we went further and did a similar solution for all your electric appliances. With one unit, you cover them all, that you can just clamp into the circuit breaker panel. So by now, we virtually have the most, or one of the most comprehensive energy solutions on the market. And I would argue, at least with what I've seen so far, it's actually the absolutely most comprehensive, the most easy to install, and most powerful solution if taken together as a suite.
Wow, that's incredible. I can't believe you built all that in your garage before even launching the company. One thing that I try to do to save water heater costs is just take cold showers. But my wife doesn't like that, so she still uses the hot water in the house.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, it definitely helps you wake up in the morning. But I also saw that you have the ability to save up to 50% of water and water heating and electricity costs for homeowners and businesses, which amounts to gigatons of CO2 not being emitted. This almost sounds too good to be true. So how are you able to achieve this at such a reasonable price?
We did do a pilot study. And actually, with this pilot study, we saw that we save in New York for a family of four up to $1,000 on average per year, which is very significant. And that was actually for us the reason to say, we want to become active and build this company. Saving 50% is definitely possible. And we had even customers that saved a bit more. It's not that the average customer saves 50%, but the average customer saves very significantly. So the average customer, we do see saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year. So the unit virtually pays for itself, usually in less than a year, actually. The way it works is that for water heating, for example, you just plug our unit into your water heater for PowerX gas or like screw it on for PowerX electricity. And then the PowerX unit measures how much water you need, when you need water, how much like you most prefer, at what point you most prefer temperature is. And it also looks at what you mentioned before, the variable pricing of your electric or your gas contract. And then it takes all these variables into account and makes sure it just heats the water when you need it and as much you need and the cheapest price. As an example, when you are gone for vacation, 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, the water heater doesn't know. It's virtually heating up, cooling down, heating up, cooling down, heating up, cooling down. That's all completely lost gas. If you have a, say, vacation home that you only use like a couple of weeks each year, like the water heater powers up and down every week, spending money on your behalf that it doesn't have to spend. And that's what our artificial intelligence actually figures out and then just stops the water heater until you are back and you're really using it. A second thing, as we said before, is your utility contract in many states can be like 50%, 30% cheaper at some points in time. So you really don't care if your water heater was, say, did heat up at like 6 a.m. and when you shower at 8 a.m. the water is warm, versus your water heater heating up at 7:30 when it costs twice as much and the water is warm at 8 a.m. It's, the same hot water, but much cheaper if you just warm it up an hour before. And then we do similar things for PowerX Water and PowerX Electricity. Like PowerX Water, for example, you just clamp it onto a pipe. It's super simple to install. You don't need a plumber. You just, as I said, clamp it on. And then our artificial intelligence is able to tell you what the water is being used for and where the inefficiencies in your home lie. Let's say, for example, there is a leaking toilet, which happens so often you won't believe it. PowerX Electricity actually sees a flow pattern whenever you use a toilet. Right after there's kind of this, long tail of water being used. And then it alerts you, hey, your toilet is leaking. And you're actually, spending $200, $300, $400 on a leaking toilet per year. It's completely useless. The water is gone. So it alerts you to that. It can tell you, like, it's your shower or your toilet, whatever. And then you can react to it. And very often it's virtually a 5-minute fix that can save you hundreds of dollars.
Wow, that's, it's kind of like the Nest and ecobee thermostats for HVAC units, but you're doing it for the water side and the other energy uses in your home. Now, is that sort of like the comparison?
That's exactly it. And we do it for like every energy, electricity, water, and water heating stream in your home.
Now, I know a lot of utility companies are trying to roll out these functions and features as well. So why would the average consumer want to buy this in addition to some of the smart meters that the utility companies are rolling out?
There's actually a huge difference between what utilities are rolling out versus what PowerX uses. You were just mentioning smart meters, and smart meters usually work in that they can tell you, you can read them, let's say once per month or twice per month, and then you know how much you spend, and you kind of have a view every month. It doesn't tell you many things. It doesn't tell you what exactly is actually inefficient or drawing up your electricity. What exactly is this vampire train of devices that should be off but are not? It doesn't tell you, it's the shower or the toilet that's leaking. Like smart meters are not that smart in all honesty. They're just easier to read data from, and the data comes in, like as said, probably once per month. What PowerX does is provide you a real-time view on what's happening, and you can react before your utility bill actually comes in. And not only that, it also tells you why this is happening. And I think this is an extremely crucial step. Like if I tell you, well, I'm a smart meter, and today you spent 20 gallons of water, and you say, great, thank you very much, smart meter, but I really have no idea why. I didn't know my toilet was leaking. And that's where PowerX makes this massive difference, because it can tell you. A second significant difference between PowerX and what you get with a smart meter is that if you want so, PowerX can actually automatically help you optimize certain devices, like your water heater. It can turn it on and off according to the schedule you want or when you're on vacation or not, and then automatically save you money. So on the one hand, I really think it's very laudable and very important and also very powerful what utility companies are doing. Like, for example, using smarter thermostats, using these smart meters. I also believe that there is like nearly a generational gap between what we have right now and what we could have and what we do provide actually with something like PowerX.
Yeah, so it sounds like, the basic Nest thermostats and EcoBees are giving you like the data in a visualization tool, but they don't give you the recommendation side of things like you are with the AI. How are you guys able to determine it's actually the toilet that is the problem and costing you 4x your last year's bill?
What we have is not only this extremely precise and real-time sensor like that reads virtually every 0.5 seconds. So that's a world's first, if you will. We also have the AI that comes with it, the artificial intelligence that comes with it and supports it. For example, when your washing machine is running, you see a very clear spike in electricity. You see a certain signature that is probably coming from a washing machine. So PowerX electricity actually picks up this very interesting signature that seems like a washing machine. And then you also have a spike in like PowerX water that sees a certain pattern of water flow. And then you may also have a spike in like your water heater sending or heating up for the washing machine. And when you like connect these three insights of water flow and electric signature and sometimes also heat signature, then you suddenly know, okay, this is like 99% probability that I'm currently using a washing machine. And not only that it tells you, okay, this signature is a washing machine, it can also tell you like how long did you run it? How much electricity did it draw? How much water did it draw? Like, did it make sense to run it like this? Is it efficient compared to what other washing machines can do? And then it can just suggest you in what ways, like for example, exchanging your washing machine may cost you $300. And you could save 500. So you get a new washing machine and you actually save money with it. And that's also something that, current solutions actually cannot do. It's just not there yet, but PowerX can.
That makes sense. So because of the cadence in which you're collecting the data outputs from all the devices that you're installed on, you're taking those signals and then running them against a baseline on what it should be recognized as a dishwasher or as a washing machine from their energy consumption or output. And then you're testing it to see how strong or weak it is in terms of its performance and whether or not it should be corrected.
Exactly. And also what you could do to correct it. Like, for example, running it an hour later, or like maybe replacing it, or maybe using a different cycle that is more powerful and eco-friendly.
I love it. I mean, I have no idea what my dishwasher is doing when it's on eco mode, but I'm sure it's not as good as it should be, and therefore I'll be buying a PowerX after this chat. You recently concluded a highly successful crowdfunding campaign to build a community of early adopters and fund the first production run. I saw that your campaign beat its goal by 10 times, which was incredible, and it was ranked as one of the top-rated technology products on Kickstarter. Why did you decide to use Kickstarter to fund your initial production run? And are you still on track to meet your July 2021 delivery dates?
Great question. Yes, we are on track. So as it looks right now, we are either sending out mid-July or if, things become a bit harsh, up to mid-August. But we are definitely very close. And that makes us very happy because if you look at the current environment, you have like a wafer crisis that virtually forces the likes of Ford and Tesla to shut down plants. With such a backdrop, PowerX still being able to deliver makes us quite happy. Why did we do it? For two reasons, really. Number one, we love the Kickstarter community. I think there's a lot of energy in there that you just can't get somewhere else. And then number two, we had these 2 to 3 months that we wanted to bridge after our initial run with pilot customers. Also after understanding what people want. We had these 2 to 3 months where we just wanted to see, okay, what are people asking for? How is the reaction when we put it on the market? And Kickstarter was fantastic for that. I also believe, even if Kickstarter had not been that phenomenal, we are super happy about it. we would still have brought the product to life just because we believe in our mission so much. So we did get funding, initial funding before the Kickstarter. We got a much bigger round now after Kickstarter. But like all in combination, having this amazing market feedback and having these funding rounds, I think that was really fantastic for us to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it was a great thing for you guys. And you just mentioned you did recently announce a $4 million investment round from Springtide Capital, Antler Global, and some senior executives from Tesla and SpaceX, along with YC. Can you share more about your plans for growth over the next year and how you plan to install your products in over 10,000 homes as planned?
For sure. First, we are super happy of having like names like Tesla and SpaceX and also YCombinator on board, and that really helps with like hiring very strong talent. So one arm of this is definitely the talents that we want to bring in. I can actually already say that we were just able to sign up the director of operations and supply chain from Philips Electrolux Conair. So an amazing veteran in the field, leaving these high-powered companies and joining PowerX as our director of supply chain and operations. So one arm to do so is hiring this fantastic talent. And then another arm, the second way we go about this is definitely ramping up our production. That requires, quite some work. Number one, you need to make sure you can push out 5,000-10,000 units per month even. So you need several production lines. You need to make sure, containers ship around your product. So you need to discuss with and pay these logistics companies. You need to have warehouses in the US and maybe even some in Europe. So some of this money is definitely spent on ramping up production and making sure logistics works. And then finally, part of what we do is also making people aware of the solution. I think this is so important because the value proposition we have for customers, homeowners, apartments out there is just fantastic. We virtually tell them, buy our product, it will pay for itself. That's one thing. Like, not only pay for itself, you actually earn money with PowerX. You put a money printing machine into your basement. That's already a value proposition enough by itself. But then, number two, you get unprecedented insight of what's happening in your home. You know exactly when things happen, where they happen. Number three, you get safety and peace of mind. Like, you have a leak in your home, you know it a second after by receiving a short message on your phone. If your gas pipes might be leaky, PowerX may be able to pick it up and tell you. If your water heater is about to break down, PowerX will send you a message and tell you, we saw your water heating element just using more and more electricity to heat up a gallon of water. Something is wrong there. You might want to go into your basement and check it out. So we already have a super kind of promise to customers, and you save money, you get peace of mind and have safety. You get unprecedented insight as you've never gotten before. And apart from all that, on top, we actually say, you do the right thing. You actually save carbon emissions with that. And you save quite a lot. Virtually what 5 to 7 trees fully grown trees can sequester each year. So you're basically starting to build a small forest with that. I believe, that's why we actually could attract names like YCombinator, like Tesla, like SpaceX, and can also attract talent like these industry veterans, because they see this value promise to customers and they see what PowerX, if scaled up, could do. It could make a real, very impactful dent in the fight against climate change. PowerX can play a huge role and be like one of the main brands fighting climate change and doing what it should do morally as a business and as part of this industry.
It sounds like a trifecta, a triple win for you, for the customers, and for the climate, which is incredible. What other products or services do you plan to expand to with the PowerX platform in the near future?
I can hint to 2 products we are currently evaluating. One is PowerX Soil, something that you can put into your lawn, and it's able to transfer data on how your plants and your flowers and so on are doing, whether they need a bit more sunlight, whether they need a bit more water. Another one is quite an innovative battery pack, if you will, that has a number of benefits towards the power walls that we see today already. And there's an incredible benefit of PowerX having these, energy efficiency, water efficiency products in its ecosystem. And that benefit is that we actually, with PowerX, have our own long-range communication protocol with which we can send data. So, for example, your water heater is in your basement. Your lawn really doesn't have Wi-Fi, right? So what we developed is a communication protocol that can send data over 2, 3, 4 miles. And it's extremely, extremely energy efficient. So it uses way less energy or battery power than, for example, Wi-Fi does. So you can virtually put the soil sensor in your lawn a mile out. It stays there for 3, 4, 5 years. You never have to charge any battery. And on your mobile phone, you actually see, hey, great, now I have to water my lawn. Or like, okay, today, don't waste water. The soil is still perfectly well. Or you can have this battery pack in your garage. PowerX and our communication protocol can still reach it and can still make sure you can see this battery pack and how it actually improves your home on your mobile phone. So definitely a number of really exciting products that that I hope and I actually foresee, being cutting edge and actually a new generation that we want to bring out in other arenas as well. But it's always under the same, umbrella and the same mission. We want to save the planet. We want to save people money.
That's incredible. I mean, I personally hate water my plants, so I could definitely see using one of the PowerX soil devices. But I also think agriculture can benefit from that communication range that you say is available for 2 to 3 miles, which is really cool and exciting. Before we wrap things up, we always ask our guests for your fast favorites, where I list off 5 of your favorite topics and you give us your rapid answers. So first, what is your favorite podcast?
For sure. Now, I have to say, I really like your podcast, especially this last one.
Well, any others?
There's a number of podcasts I'm listening to, for example, Residential Tech and so on. I have a number of favorites there.
All right, perfect. Favorite newsletter and blog?
That is a bit more difficult because I'm not a big newsletter guy, to be honest. But I am following, what's happening on the likes of Fortune Term Sheet or a Clean Technica. So more like specialized newsletters to the industry we are in.
Gotcha. And you can't say PowerX. So what is your favorite tech gadget?
I actually have this. I don't know whether you know, Star Wars. There is this little robot that basically has a sphere as a body, and then it rolls on that sphere and has somehow the head on top of the sphere that always stays on top. And I always thought it was physically impossible, but I actually just got exactly this little robot with a sphere that rolls in my home now. So I can remote control it, and I have the little Star Wars robot rolling around in my home, and it makes me and my 4 and 6-year-old nephews very happy. So that's probably at the moment my favorite tech gadget.
That's the BB-8.
you know the name. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Awesome. Favorite new trend?
I really love to see 2 things in trends. The first one is what I'm currently seeing in the climate change arena. I see people like you saying, I'm taking a cold shower or I'm using my dishwasher an hour later. That just wasn't the case 10 years ago. Or if it was, it was very, 0.1%. So that's a trend I think for my heart is really soothing to see that people see that and they actually want to do something about it. And then the second trend I believe was brought about with COVID, at least in with the people I'm around with, and that's putting value on the human relationships we have. One thing that personally with the people I'm with that I realized was that we became to value much more what it means to have physical interaction and be around your friends and family. I personally love to see the trend that people say, maybe we have like 1 or 2 days that we allow our employees to work from home as from now on, because that's how they can be around their family, be around their friends, and don't have to decide between my toddlers and my work. So I think that's an amazing trend that COVID brought about.
Absolutely. Relearning the value of human connection is what we like to say at Ripple. So that's awesome. And last but not least, your favorite book.
I do have many books, but there is like a section of books that I, at the moment, like very, very much. And usually those are books on quantum physics. The reason why I love this segment so much is because it teaches me that reality, the real reality, we don't know. Like the real reality of our world, we don't know much about. And B, it's way, way weirder than what we think it is. Like once you drill down, to the core of what makes up physics and chemistry and so on, there is this magic, mystical place where things just behave completely differently. Like it seems as if this quantum realm even reacts to whether we observe it or not. And then as if this chemical compound could decide to behave differently if you stare at it or not. So a special book that's targeting this is called Beyond Weird. But there is a number of books on the topic, and like for anyone who just loves to dive into some like really magical realm that's actually really what we are living in this world, quantum physics has a lot to offer.
Well, the title explains it just the way you did, Beyond Weird.
Beyond Weird.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for sharing that. And thanks for joining us in the tank today with Manuel Schoenfeld, CEO and founder of PowerX, to discuss the true cost of decarbonizing our homes. Thanks for joining us, Manuel.
Matt, thank you so very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Tank Talks. To learn more about this episode, be sure to go to Apple Podcast or Spotify to find more detailed notes on this episode or to check out previous episodes. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and a rating, as it helps us out a lot. And hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when new episodes come out. Finally, make sure to give me a follow on Twitter @MattyBCohen or @Tank Talk Podcast to stay up to date on new episodes or to be a guest on our show. Till next time,